Morning. Today is Monday, the 10th day of Menachem Av, the day after Tisha B'Av, the time that the consolation begins and the rebuilding, which really began on Tisha B'Av itself. But we are now going towards the Geula, the redemption, and it's connected also with the Tanya, with the lesson we learned in Tanya today, as we started yesterday. The Rebbe began chapter 4, the letter 4 of Igeret Hakodesh, which talks about Ein Israel Negolim Ela B'Tzedakah, that the Yidden are redeemed with tzedakah, that it says V'shaveh B'Tzedakah, the captives will return B'Tzedakah, that the charity will bring the redemption. And the Alter Rebbe explains that when we're talking about redemption, we're not only talking about the redemption as a whole, that the Jewish people are redeemed, but we are talking also about the individual redemption of the soul, that the neshama is also being redeemed, and that is done through tzedakah. Just a second. So, and this is what it says, v'shaveh b'tzedakah. Now, what does it mean to redeem the individual neshama? It says the Alter Rebbe, he brings the fact that it says that we need to seek the inner part of the heart. And in other words, the tzedakah helps us redeem something deeper within ourselves. What does that mean? What are we talking about? The Alter Rebbe said, what it says in the Tehillim, that L'cham al libi bakshu fanai, my heart said to you, seek my inner part. That means that we have to seek, there's something inward, the person that needs to be seeked out. And that is it's called the pnimiyut halev, the inner part of the heart. Because the heart represents the emotions, the excitement. And there is two ways that a person can get excited about something. It's what's called the chitzoniyut halev and the pnimiyut halev. Chitzoniyut halev is the external part of the heart, meaning that you get excited something externally. There is things that are acquired excitement, acquired love. And then there's other things that is pnimius halev that are essential to the person. You don't have to acquire it. I mean, you can make friends, let's say, and you look at a friend and you see how the person is smart, is good, is nice, is fun, and you love him and you develop a feeling towards the person. Can that change? Yes, of course it can change. You have one day you find out something about a person, then it can change completely. There's other things which are essential to the person. You love your child. It's not something that is acquired love. It's something that is innate love. It's something within you. It's who you are. So says the Alter Rebbe that we have the ability of reaching out, the same thing with love to Hashem. Developing a love to God can be done with acquired love by learning, by meditating, and understanding the greatness of Hashem, and so on and so forth. But it's all an acquired love. Can you love Hashem and love other things in the same time? In a way, yes. I can love Hashem and can get excited about Hashem, and the next thing, I want a nice piece of steak, and that doesn't bother me at all. And so your heart can shift in different ways. This is the acquired love. This is the chitzonius halev. But when you ever talking about what Hashem wants us to seek, is to seek something deeper, to seek a connection with Hashem that is really, really the core of who we are, to understand that Hashem is really everything. And this is something that we need to seek because it's concealed. So let's look inside, and what the Alter Rebbe is going to explain today, that We know that to achieve the external part of the chitzonius, the external part of the heart, to seek to achieve that is not easy. Not everyone is equally understanding and deep in achieving this great level of understanding godliness, that to the point that you get excited about it. But when it comes to the pnimius alev, when it comes to the very core of who we are, that in essence, it should really be the same by every Jew. Everyone should be equally excited because this is who we are. It doesn't make a difference whether you're smart, whether you're not, whether you're learned. It's who you are. If it's the neshama in you, then it should be everyone. Then how come, says the Alter Rebbe, that it's something that it's not, we don't find it, that it's equally by everyone. That's what we're going to see inside now. Says the Alter Rebbe, the reason that not every person merits this rank in service of the heart, that a service from the depth of the heart in a state of pnimius, from the inner part. Why don't we have it if this is the very essence of who we are? Says the Alter Rebbe, the problem is that this spark of God that is in you is in a way in exile. It's concealed. This is that within him, this faculty is in a state of exile and captivity. And this is actually the state of the exile of the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah is the divine God's presence, as we explained in earlier chapters. That the Shekhinah is in exile in the person, in the animalistic soul. For it is precisely the Shekhinah which is the spark of the divine divinity that is in one's divine soul. That is the Shekhinah, and that Shekhinah is in exile. Thus, when the spark is in exile, the Shekhinah is in exile as well. It says, moreover, being in exile, the spark cannot rouse the soul to serve God with a loftier manner of love that stems from the innermost depth of the heart. Now, what happened? How did this Shekhinah go to exile? How did this part of your neshama, the spark of your soul, how did it go to exile? It says the Alter Rebbe, "V'sibas hagolus u'mayma rabbeinu zichronim levacha golu lebavel Shekhinah imohen." The cause of the exile of the divine spark of the soul is, as in the words of our sages of blessed memory, when the Jewish people were exiled to Babylon, the Shekhinah went with them. Dehainu, mipnei she'ilbish pchinas pnimius nekudas levavai bezel umazeh. Says this is so because he has vested the innermost point of his heart in the aspect of the universe, which is the opposing counterpart to the holiness. Bezel umazeh. Dehainu, which means bilvushim tzoim de mila de alma. V'tayvos oilamaze anikra b'shem Bavel. It is, namely, it says, in the soiled garment, mundane matters and worldly desires which are known as Babylon. So what is he saying? What is the Alter Rebbe saying? He's saying that part of the neshama, the pnimius alev, which really is the core of who we are, went to exile, meaning that we invested our core in mundane things. In other words, what do we identify with? With the mundane things, with things that are not kedusha, which are not holy. So, and those are, this is called, he says this is called the Bavel. Bavel is Babylon. Represents their first exile. But the word Bavel also means confusion. That the world is confused. And instead of having our core and identify with who we are with God, with Hashem, what do we identify with? We identify with the mundane things, material things. This is what it says also. It says in the exile of Egypt, it says that the Vayavidu Mitzrayim as Bnei Yisrael Befarech, the Egyptians, they made the Jewish people work Befarech. Befarech means hard labor. What is the definition of hard labor? Hard labor, the Rambam Maimonides defines it as labor without a goal. You don't have a goal. You tell the person, I want you to start digging over here. Till when? Until I come back. Don't tell them a goal. There's no purpose for it. There's no goal. So the Rebbe points out, the Rebbe explains that what this did is it took the Kedusha, the holiness, and changed it into the evil. What does it mean? That really the way we should serve Hashem, we should serve Hashem in that way. We should serve God without a goal. We should identify with Hashem, Kihu Chayacha, because God is who we are. God is our life. So you ask Hashem, what is your goal in serving Hashem? What is your goal in praying? I don't have a goal. This is who I am. I want to be with Hashem. This is who my essence is. And the Egyptians took that way of serving, and they completely changed it to be serving into the opposite, into the other side, other than the Kedusha, the evil side. And our job is, we need to redeem that soul from exile. And now the Rebbe goes on and explains. Says the Alter Rebbe, Vehi bechinas orla mechase ala bris unekuda apnimis shebalev. Says this exile corresponds to the foreskin that covers the covenant and the innermost point of the heart. Just like we have a mitzvah of removing the foreskin in the physical sense, we also have a mitzvah of removing the foreskin that covers the innermost part in a spiritual sense. And of this is written, Umaltem eis olas levavchem, and you shall excise the foreskin of your heart. You have to remove the foreskin of the heart. Says the Alter Rebbe, when it comes to the mitzvah of the circumcision, we need to remove not just the main foreskin, the coarse skin. There is also a mitzvah in circumcision to remove also what's called the membrane, a thinner layer of the skin. Vehine b'mila, says the Alter Rebbe, yeshnei bechinos mila ubriya. Now in circumcision there are two stages: mila, excision, and periya, the uncovering of the more thinner layer. Shein ola gasa v'klipa daka, which remove respectively the coarse foreskin and the thin membrane. Similarly, says the Alter Rebbe, is also in the spiritual circumcision, we also have two types of skin, a foreskin that we need to remove. Two types of apposition, skin that covers the purity of our heart. Says the Alter Rebbe, v'chein be'orlas aleiv, yesh gam kein tavos gasas v'dakis. With respect to the foreskin of the heart, which the Torah commands us similarly to circumcise, there are likewise coarse and subtle desires. This is corresponding to the two grades of skin, mila uperiya. These two grades of worldly desires, respectively, require mila and priya. We need to remove the thick layer of the foreskin and also the thin layer, meaning there are certain things that are very coarse desires. But then there's all some things that are not so coarse. You feel there are more subtle negativities in the person. For example, You have desires of eating something which is not kosher. You have a desire to food. You can remove it. You can control yourself. You say, I'm not going to do it. There's more subtle desires. Some people, which is much harder to remove. A desire for honor. A person wants to be honored. If somebody's going to say something to him that is going to offend him, it's going to be the end of the world. That also needs to be removed, that arrogance, the looking for honor, things like that. There's a more subtle desire which is more difficult to remove. And then there is levels after levels, goes deeper and deeper. What needs to be removed? And the halacha says, if a moyel removes the foreskin, but it doesn't remove the thinner membrane, it's like the child is not circumcised. That is why we go having a bris. It's important to have a moyel who is a Yerei Shamayim, a person who is a God-fearing person. You can't just have a doctor coming and doing the circumcision if he doesn't know all the details of how a child needs to be circumcised according to the Torah. That's what it says. And if one perform milah circumcision without periya, without uncovering the thinner layer, it is as if is not circumcised. So the same thing it says in the spiritual sense. If you remove only the coarse foreskin, but you do not remove the thinner, the more subtle, the subtle layer of negativity, then it is, at the end of the day, it still covers and conceals that inner part of your heart. He says, because after all he said is done, the innermost point of the heart is still covered by a garment of thin sackcloth, of kalipis, belvush sakdak, sackcloth. The word sackcloth also represents the evil sack. Is like something that covers a person. There is a garment that reveals what a person is. But a sackcloth is something you put on and you cover completely the person, and it's concealing the person. So no matter what it is, it still conceals the deeper part of the person. And that part of the person is b'pchinas golus v'shivya. It is in a state of exile and captivity. So the question is, how do we do it? How do we remove the foreskin? Says the Alter Rebbe, the first part is easier. And that is something we can do ourselves. Now concerning the excision of the foreskin itself, it is written, and you yourself shall excise the foreskin of your heart. You can do it yourself. Atem ba'atzmechem. However, the removal of the thin membrane is a difficult matter for men. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. And of this it is written that with the coming of Mashiach, the Lord your God will circumcise your heart. To love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul for the sake of your life. What does it mean for the sake of your life? Because God alone is literally your whole life. That's what we spoke before. To understand, to appreciate that who is my life is God. That's what matters. This is something, says the Alter Rebbe, it says ultimately Hashem will do it. Hashem will remove that thin layer of the foreskin to make us sense the godliness, that we should feel that Hashem is our whole entire life. Shelochein. That is why this love, the love that follows the divine excision of the heart's thin membrane, it stems from the depths of the heart. From the truly innermost point, as mentioned above, and this transcends the faculty of da'at. Da'at means the knowledge, the understanding, the connecting through understanding properly. This level of love is way beyond, it's above understanding. It's who you are. And this, as the Alter Rebbe explains what it says, that Mashiach comes behesech hadas, when there is no das, when there is no knowledge. What does that mean? It says, V'lachin Mashiach ba behesech hadas leklolos Yisrael. Therefore, too, Mashiach will come when Israel, in general, are caught unaware. What does that mean? Normally, we understand, we say Mashiach comes when we'll not be expecting it. But here the Alter Rebbe says a deeper meaning what that means, because after all, we are asking for Mashiach every single day. And we're always thinking about Mashiach, praying about Mashiach, and that's what we should do. What does it mean that it comes behesach hadas, when there's caught unaware? He says what it means is that your Mashiach comes to be revealing something. There is a deeper connection which is above das. That's above understanding. That is behesach hadas, with the removal of the das. His coming is the manifestation of the innermost point, which is universal to all Jews. And likewise, the emergence of the universal Shechina, of the entire community of Israel, from exile and captivity forevermore. So this is, when we're talking about the coming of Mashiach, we're talking about the greatness, the revelation and the redemption of all Am Yisrael, all the Jewish people in the entire world will be redeemed by revealing that part of the neshama which is above das, above knowledge, the essential connection to Hashem. But until then, now we can also have it temporarily, partially. Says the Alter Rebbe, "V'chein kol nitzutz proti ma'ashchina shebenefesh kol echad miYisrael." Similarly, every particular spark of the Shechina inherent in the soul of every individual Jew, yoitzeis me'agolus ve'ashivya lefi sha'ah, it emerges for the moment from exile and captivity, b'chayei sha'ah zu tefillah, during the momentary life which is prayer. That means that during the prayer, a person can reach a momentary life, a connection to Hashem in that level. During the service of the heart, of his heart, from the depth of his heart, from the innermost point, which becomes divested of the concealing foreskin, and soars upward to cleave to him with a fierce passion, in the spirit of the phrase, for the sake of your life. For the individual senses that godliness is his entire life. And in this too, in this momentary deliverance of the innermost point of the heart during the service of prayer, a man may be considered to be in a state of hesech hadas. You can also be considered in that level. Because this level, this state, is way above of the knowledge and transcends the das of the man and his meditation on the greatness of Hashem. Rather, it is a kind of a gift granted by Hashem from heaven. That when a person commits himself and connects himself doing davening, he can get this gift to sense that higher level of connection with Hashem, which is above rationale. From the radiance of the supernal countenance. As it is written, may God make his countenance shine upon you. So that means that this is something that comes from Hashem, not necessarily something that you do. And as it is written, and God the Lord will circumcise, he will remove the insensitivity of your heart. This is something that comes from above. And that is what we need to seek, says the Alter Rebbe. And in tomorrow's lesson, he connects it also. How do we get to achieve something of this level? Is through the mitzvah of tzedakah. And he will explain also why comes to the mitzvah of tzedakah. So this is the end of today's shir. Thank you so much for joining. And any questions? We'll take now any questions. Don't forget to
I wait till you finish. I gotta act.
Get the word out.
I gotta wait.